Shops and businesses shut, public places sealed off, transport services impacted, residents locked inside their homes, and a battered economy. China's two largest cities, Beijing and Shanghai, are back to December 2020, with COVID-19 cases on the rise and authorities struggling to contain the infection spread. And while the world is moving towards a living with the virus approach, the Chinese government is adamant to stick to its zero COVID strategy. The financial hub of Shanghai is in its 6th week of lockdown. Beijing has been hoping to avoid the weeks of lockdowns that Shanghai has endured, but the growing number of residential buildings under lockdown orders is unnerving the residents. They say authorities have launched a new push to end infections and have tightened restrictions, and their cities have turned into prisons. And this has fueled public anger. The World Health Organization has now criticized the country's hardline approach. It says China's flagship zero COVID policy is unsustainable.
When we talk about the zero COVID strategy, we don't think that it's sustainable considering the behavior of the virus now and what we anticipate in the future. And especially when we have now a good knowledge, understanding of the virus, and when we have good tools to use, transiting into another strategy will be very important.
But this is China we are talking about. It has clearly not learned how to take criticism well. Moreover, in all these years, Beijing has not even changed its response to criticism. They have one approach. They always fall back on censorship. The World Health Organization's chief's comments prompted the Chinese army of internet censors to get to work. A Weibo post on the United Nations account summarizing the WHO chief's remarks was censored soon after it was posted. And after that, internet users searching for the post were given a notification that the content was illegal. Many users on Weibo, which is China's Twitter-like platform, complained that only screen captures of the UN post were removed, but not only were they removed, but even pictures of the WHO chief became a target of China's social media censorship. A Weibo hashtag of Dr. Tedros' name has also been censored. On WeChat, an article from the UN's official account that included the WHO chief's comment has been banned from being shared due to a violation of relevant laws and regulations. Video clips of Dr. Tedros' speech have also been removed from the platform. Criticism from the global health body that was accused of favoring China earlier on in the pandemic came just days after the Chinese President Xi Jinping vowed to double down on the zero COVID strategy and resolutely struggle against all the criticism and all the critics. The WHO chief's comments, though in line with assessment of most scientists, have also drawn the ire of Beijing, which called them irresponsible. But China's strict system of censorship is struggling to hold up. Its citizens are furious and are finding ways to get around the bans on words and hashtags on social media. On WeChat, citizens are sharing names and stories of people who have died either with COVID-19 or because of the lockdown delaying access to healthcare. They are criticizing the zero COVID strategy. As the world opens up, they are sharing videos of residents being detained, bundled out of their apartments, or treated roughly by the authorities. Many of these are being deleted quickly, but the volume of the so-called forbidden posts appears to be posing a hard challenge for the censorship system. With us on the broadcast this minute is Professor Michael Linnell from Jerusalem. He is the Professor of Biological Chemistry at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, Israel. Thanks very much for being here with us. What is your reaction to the way China has not just censored criticism coming in from its own citizens by crushing dissent on the ground, but also now is clamping down on criticism coming in from the World Health Organization?
So, we are already 2.5 years within the pandemics, and maybe strategy that were legitimate in the first few months are not legitimate by now, because we know so much more about the 200 countries, how they dealt with, and those that did very well, those that did really poorly. And by now, just ignoring all this knowledge, I think it's unacceptable. So first of all, you have to learn what, in the world in the last 2 years, there were many different strategies. Some really supported strongly the lockdown, like China, like Australia, and so on, New Zealand, and some others were extremely open, like Sweden, and so on. By now, 2 years after, we understand very well, really well, what was the price of doing this strategy or the other. I think clearly, by now we know for sure that there is no way whatsoever to block the virus spreading. So the idea of lockdown and really make the strategy of zero infection just means, at the best scenario, delay it by a month, maybe 2 weeks, but there is no way, unless the country will be blocked, namely China will be isolated, maybe similar to North Korea and stuff like that. Any other international relation will not be sustainable, and I'm sure that any further delay, the Chinese will have to pay, not only in economy, but in thousands and thousands of lost life. So I think it's right. Just the wrong way to go.
Right, and there is a growing frustration on the ground. What is China trying to prove with its stringent approach while it remains adamant to not change its strategy?
So clearly, by sticking to this strategy, first of all, there is no country in the world, we are talking about 200 countries, that were able to block the virus, even with a strict regulation like in New Zealand, Australia, Singapore, and so on. So by definition, that would not work. And especially, I think, it's even more important because the current variants that are spread throughout the world are extremely infectious. So all those solutions that might be of relevance, I would say 2 years ago, where the virus were far less infectious, were relevant, but not anymore. I mean, by now, the variant, we are talking about the Omicron, AB2, or 4, 5, or any of those variants, are completely different type of viruses. They are far more infectious. They spread, in the household. There is no way, that one will be infected, all the rest will be infected, 100%. So any effort to block it is irrelevant, and I think China is really thinking on a virus that is not there anymore. The original one is, by 2 years, it's over. There is no virus like this anymore. So we are talking about a new virus, much, much more infectious, probably, by the way, less dangerous in some sense. But still, I think there is no way that China can block itself unless it's decide on another strategy, which is China disconnect from the global world.
Right.
If this is the case, it can be done, but the price is unbearable.
Indeed. Professor, we're leaving it there for the moment, but thanks very much for joining us with those perspectives.
My pleasure. A lot of health to everybody.
WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.